Alright, what's up, y'all? So what we're going to try to do here is a little bit of an explanation of Universal Automation V2. This is a system, we'll give some shout outs here. People designed it. Hollow Wings, of course, there's a poster here on the Discord. And then it was worked on by, I think, primarily Sansa and Inphysible, with Potato doing some playtesting. You can see the post here on the Discord. They got the test world that we're going to be taking a look at. Hopefully this will help some folks make some sense of what's going on here. Couple of disclaimers. This is not intended to replace Potato's video. He's busy with the subathon, and it's going to be a while before he's able to get around to the video, so hopefully this will help bridge the gap between now and whenever he is able to get around to it. Another disclaimer, I am only going to cover the version of the unloader that is designed to work without the stocking hatches. Just this pre-advanced docking bus. It's not too much of a difference between the pre-versions and the post-bus and post-hatch versions. So if you get a feel for it before the advanced stocking, it shouldn't be too difficult to convert over. The other thing I'm going to do once this is posted on YouTube, I'm going to keep a pinned comment at the top with, relevant links and any kind of corrections that come along, because I'm sure there's going to be some. So what I'm going to do, the first thing is I'm going to go over the test world, try to give an explanation of sort of the path for everything. And then I'm going to hop into my own world and show my implementation of it. This has been tested to work on 2.8.0 and 2.8.1. I assume it also works on 0.4, although I haven't verified that yet, so that's what Discord is there for if you run into problems. The basic idea of this design is still a stealth swapping design. If you're familiar with version 1, it's the same idea, but this is designed to use only Greg and AE2 stuff instead of relying on moving the cells around with Ender IO conduits. The advantage of this is it's a lot faster, and it also is better for TPS than the version that's running a lot of redstone components and Ender IO and everything. So this is the test world that was given to us by Invisibl. Let me get rid of this. Give me a second here. Something I'm a little more used to. And I need a network tool. Alright, we already had one. Whatever. Okay. So the system looks incredibly complicated at first glance. Took me a little bit of time to get it sorted out, but it's not too difficult to understand once you spend a little bit of time with it. I'm going to go over the different networks individually here, starting with the simplest ones. There we go. The first two that we want to look at are these two networks that have storage on them. These are used with all the different setups. So as you can see over here, we've got setups for a laser engraver, an LCR, and a precise assembler. But all of those setups use these common networks. So not the light blue, but these other 4 here are common between all the setups. The first one is the non-consumable network. As you can see, it's connecting to each of the loaders over there, as well as this non-consumable loader. All it does is stores the various non-consumables that are used. So we got a lens in here, a couple of program circuits. The first thing you want to worry about is that you have enough non-consumables in here that your system isn't waiting on that. So if you're running a big craft and you go in here and you notice that one of these circuits is missing, you need to add some more in there. Otherwise, the system's going to slow down. The second network that we're looking at here, basically exactly the same thing. It collects and holds the empty cells while they're not in use by the loaders or unloaders. Again, always keep check in here. If you're running low, add some more. The other 2 that are common between everything are the recovery and the delivery networks. So the delivery network, via this little contraption here, takes cells out of the storage network. Get rid of these panels here. Takes cells out of the storage network. They're stocked in this in this interface from the storage network. A conveyor on a chest buffer pulls them into the chest buffer and then pushes them into an interface on the delivery network. This can be any sort of item movement that you really want. I personally, instead of use conveyor covers, I use the filter covers, just because they are also 1-tick covers, but cheaper. Pretty straightforward. And this can be probably really the only other block this could reasonably be would be like a super chest. Not really worth it to buffer, more than 27. Also, there's no point in this being a UHV block. All chest buffers hold 27. When you're using them in this fashion, there's no difference between an LV and a UHV one. They're all function the same way. So again, we're pulling empty cells out of the storage network, pushing them into the delivery network, which is this cyan one here. After that, the cells have some magic that happened to them in the loaders and unloaders that we'll get to in a second. And after the unloaders are done with them, the cells go back into this recovery network, and they hit this little contraption here. The recovery network will store by a storage bus anything that's put into it from the unloaders, stores them into these I/O ports, which then unload their contents into the network. The contents of the cells are only going to be the non-consumables. So those are stored via a storage bus back into the orange network. So that's where the non-consumables are returned to. And then the cells themselves are pulled out of the I/O port via this hull and sent into an interface back on the brown storage network for the cells. That is the 4 common networks. Now we're going to talk about the loaders and the unloaders. This is a basic loader right here. Get that out of the way. We start at the top with mainnet. This part right here is connected to mainnet. You can see pulls everything there. And this is where your patterns are stored. This works just like any other interface on a subnet type situation. We have our advanced blocking card in here. And you got your interface. Now, 1 second. I am not loaded into the AE network. It's a fresh install, and I forgot to do this. Try that again. Okay, as I was saying, this is mainnet. You got your interface with patterns, set to blocking mode, on an interface on the subnet with an advanced blocking card. You don't need these 2 interfaces on the top if you don't have patterns that are going into them. So that is your loader network right here. Patterns being sent into the interface with the advanced blocking card. One pattern stored at a time on a disk in this chest. You can see right now it's empty, but... And then it is stored into a cell that has been loaded from the cell delivery network. So, as we were doing before, this contraption pulls cells out of brown, puts it into cyan, and these cells are then stored in I/O ports on all the various loaders. You can see here, cyan network. This I/O port itself, again, like I said, we're taking the contents of the network, putting them onto the disk. So anything that's been inserted into the disk in this chest then gets transferred into this disk. Once the network is empty, cell gets moved over, and then is pulled out of the I/O port by this hull. Again, any conveyor module or anything that's moving, any cover that's moving things on a 1-tick delay, so IV conveyor or higher, or a filter cover, you can see down here, 1 tick. Very important for these, the conveyor modules are defaulted to 5 ticks. So if you are using conveyor modules, make sure you switch these. Again, pulled down through the hull into a second I/O port. This I/O port is on a separate network all by itself, which is connected to our non-consumable network via a storage bus on an interface. This interface is configured to hold the non-consumables that are needed for that particular circuit. So if you have, 24 of these loaders, each one of these is going to have a different circuit. Now, the way they do it in the test world, I think it's a little confusing because they use a circuit 0 for blocking. I use just a block for blocking, and I use circuit 0 for crafts that don't require a circuit, which works differently because I have my item detection set up differently. I'll cover that when we get there. So basically all this is doing is anything that you have configured in this interface is going to get pulled by this storage bus into the cell. Again, it's going to move when the network is empty, and then it gets sent down to this delivery network, which is light blue. And we'll go through another couple ones over here. So you see this is a laser engraver, no circuit, and an emerald lens. What do we got over here? Circuit 1 for LCR, circuit 9 for LCR, circuit 24 for LCR, circuit 24 for precise assembler, circuit 9 for precise assembler, circuit 1 for precise assembler. Once the cells are configured with the patterned items and the non-consumables, they're then pushed into a series of P2P interfaces. They're stored by this fuzzy card and, a stocked cell. For some reason, it's important that it has to be the far right slot. Not really sure why. When I was testing it, I put them in all different slots and I never saw a problem, but according to Hollowwing's post, it does have to be in the far right, so I just do that and I don't question it. That is then delivered all the way up here to this linked P2P interface. And this is the beginning of our unloader. Cell is inserted into this hull. Again, we have 1-tick covers in here. It's pulled out of the interface into our first I/O port. The entire contents of the cell are unloaded into the network. And then again, another hull is going to pull it into another I/O port where this redstone card, active without signal, is going to keep the cell sitting empty until the contents are ready to be moved out of the network. Meanwhile, the contents of the cell are going to be pushed onto this blue network where a bunch of storage buses on different things are sitting, and we'll go over how those are filtered. Again, I think this is a little confusing, but they have two separate input buses. One is strictly for controlling the redstone on this second I/O port, and the other one is for the actual inputs. In my setup, I've combined them both, and again, I'll go over that when we move into my world. This is the input bus where the actual crafting ingredients go. So you'll see here we have blacklisted, fluid packets, cells themselves, and the non-consumables that are in use. And then over here, we just have the non-consumables that are in use whitelisted, as well as just a non-configured fluid storage bus here. Then the final two storage buses we have on the network, the first one is going to be sending fluid packets into a fluid packet decoder. And the other one is going to be sending our blocking item into this machine hole right here. So what that does, and again, I think it's a little confusing that they're using a program circuit 0 here. We'll see in my setup that this is just a renamed block. But when it inserts that into this hull, it is enabling the blocking mode. You know, it says this system is in use. You can't insert another cell into here until it's done. So again, we have crafting ingredients into here, non-consumables into here, fluids into here, fluid packets into the decoder, and the blocking item goes into this hull. The craft itself is controlled by this item detector cover. When we have ingredients in this input bus, item detector cover is sending out a redstone signal into this I/O port. Again, when the I/O port is receiving a signal, it's not pulling items out of the network back into the cell. As soon as this bus is empty, that means the craft is running. The only things that should be left in the network are the non-consumables and the blocking item in the hull. As soon as this is no longer receiving redstone signal, it pulls those items back out of the cell. And then this machine hull sends it into our recovery network on this lime side here. And again, as we covered earlier, once the cells hit the lime network, it's going to be storage bus into these I/O ports. The non-consumables are going to be pulled out, sent via storage bus on interface back into orange. And the cells themselves are going to be sent back into brown this way. And that basically covers the entire run through the system. Let me switch over to my world now. I'll show you the changes that I've made here. Okay, so again, we have the common networks set up over here. We have our brown empty cell storage network. Just a bunch of cells sitting there. We have our orange non-consumable storage network. And this is the first difference you're going to see. I just have a regular block that's not going to appear anywhere else in any crafting. This is what I use to enable blocking mode, and I'll show that to you when we get over to the unloaders. And then we have the recovery and distribution networks that I mentioned before. These are our recovery and distribution devices. Again, let's start at the beginning. We have empty cells being pulled out of brown network via interfaces. Just buffer has filtered covers on it, pulling the storage cells through, sending them into cyan network. Cyan network is then going to store those cells into these I/O ports just by storage bus. And then we hit the unloader. This is mainnet. We have interface on interface. Patterns go in here. Advanced blocking card. Contents are removed from storage, put onto cells. Cells are moved into light blue network after being loaded with non-consumables. Again, this is how I handle recipes that don't have a circuit. So we have our blocking item and circuit 0 to denote no circuit. Circuit 1 and so on for these other loaders. Once the cells hit light blue network, you can see here, this is my, let's see, which one is this? The mixers, yeah. I have 25 total loaders, one for no circuit, and then one of each of the circuits for mixers. It's probably a little bit of overkill, but don't worry about that. Once they hit light blue through the P2P interface, we go over to the unloaders. Items are pulled out of light blue by this machine hull, put into the first I/O port. The cells are emptied. The same situation before. We have our blocking item that goes back into the hull to prevent any more cells from being pulled in while we're processing the first recipe. And then we've got fluid packets. Again, fuzzy card, remember that for these. Fluid packets going into the fluid packet decoder. We got our fluid input and our item input. On the item input, I have only fluid packets and blocking items blacklisted. Fluid input, nothing filtered. Now this is the difference between my setup and the other one. I have both an item detector card that's set to 2 and a fluid detector card set to 0 going into this casing right here. That's both of those are set to strong signal. And this is going to allow us to have recipes that are item only, fluid only, and combination fluid item in the same setup. If you're only doing it the other way, you have to pick between item only and fluid only because it can't detect it without these combination covers here. You will also note that I only have one item input, and that is because I'm putting the non-consumable and the pattern items into the same input. The difference there is I have this set to 2 instead of 0, so it will send a redstone signal as long as there is more than one item. The only way I can do that is by having non-circuit items with circuit 0. So anytime something's put in there, you have a circuit plus the items. Once the recipe starts processing, the items are gone, the circuit's left, and the redstone turns off. Once the redstone turns off, the non-consumables and the blocking item are pulled back into the cell by this port. Again, we have a redstone card set to active without signal. We're pulling data into the cell. Once it's done, this hull pulls it back out, sends it into Lime network. This is our recovery network, as we mentioned. And we'll go back over here. Recovery network pulls all the cells into these I/O ports. We're just sending data into network. So that's going to send the non-consumables and the blocking item back into orange network. And then this hull is going to pull the empty cells back into brown network to be recycled for use. So that is 2 examples of the system and how I modified it to, I think, work a little better. It hasn't been thoroughly tested, but works for me. Yeah. Yeah, I'm intending to put the whole thing up there. I'll try to chop it up with some chapters and put any corrections that I end up with in a comment. And like I said at the top, I'm not trying to, Bogart Potato's position here. I know he's busy with the subathon, so I just want to get something out there that can hopefully help folks out until his video is available, and I'm sure it'll be much more comprehensive and straightforward. So that I think about covers it. I'm sure I've left something out. But like I said, I'll keep an eye on the YouTube comments as well. If there's any questions down there, I'll try to get them answered. And I'm going to stop recording now.